Hi, my name is Beth Massey, and welcome to the Windows Forms over Data video series. In this next video, we're going to take a look at how we can make changes to our application when our database schema changes. Database schemas sometimes change in response to new business requirements. So when we build an application directly on top of a database, we risk breaking our application if the database table's definitions are changed. For instance, if a column is removed or a new table or relation is added, then we can end up breaking our existing code. So this might not be realized until runtime either. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate what happens to our application when our business requirements change and what we can do to minimize the impact. So I've got the Order Manager project already open, and this is the application we've been building in this series. And then I've got Server Explorer here connected to our database called OMS. In order to work with databases more easily in Visual Studio, I'm going to add a database project. And a database project is simply a project that recognizes SQL files so that we can work with T-SQL directly inside of the code editor. So we could also use a SQL Server Management Studio or Query Analyzer as well. But this is making it easier for us. So I'm just going to name this Order Manager Data. Okay. And next it asks us what database reference this project will be working with, and this is the one that's connected inside of Server Explorer. So we'll say OK. And so this creates a little project here with create scripts and change scripts and queries so we can organize our T-SQL code. So our database is set up so that we have customers, and the customers have orders. Here's the customer ID foreign key, and then those orders have order details, and we have products on the details. Let's say our business requirements change and management wants us to set up an account table so that customers can have multiple accounts and those accounts are associated with orders. Now, if we're just adding a field to a current table, it will not break our application and we'll be okay. So our data sets are what's connected to our database. And if we add a field into the base table, our data sets are still going to be able to work directly with the columns that they were set up with. But what happens if we remove a column, then that might cause problems if we are referencing that column in any of our data sets. And what can even cause more problems is if we add an entire table in between two other tables, and I'm going to show you that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add this new account table. So I'm going to right click on table and select add new table, and this will open up the table designer. So I'm just going to start populating these fields. We have an account ID, and this is going to be a primary key of the table. So right click, set primary key. We also want this to be an identity field, so I'm going to set that up here in the column properties. Okay, then I'm going to set customer ID in here. And this will be a foreign key into the customer table. So we're going to add a relation. So I'm going to right click and select relationships, click add. And we're going to select customer as the primary key and customer in our table. I haven't named the table yet, so that's what we're seeing is table 1. So we can name the table down here, account. And I want to set up an account number, so say number and make this a varchar. So that way we can store numbers and letters in this account number field. Okay, so now what I could do is just press save here, and because it's a brand new table, not affecting any other tables, and there's no data in it yet, that would work just fine. But what I'm going to do is, because we have this database project set up here, is I'm going to select instead this generate change script button here. And so what this will do is this will ask if we want to save our change scripts. And this generates exactly what the T-SQL code is to add this new table for us. So I'm going to say yes. And then it's going to ask me to save it in our change scripts folder, which is exactly where I want it. And this is going to go into the change scripts folder inside of our database project, just like that. So now I can close this even and not save changes, and we have a record here of what we did. So if you want to execute code inside of this code window, as it is, we just right click and select run. And then this will show in the output window our database output, and it looks like everything was fine. Okay? So that's how we can create change scripts for our database and organize them inside of our solution. Okay, so let's close this and refresh our tables, and we'll now see we have our account table. Now, instead of our orders directly connected to customer, we need to have our orders connected to account. So what I need to do is I need to modify the orders table. So I'm going to right click on the orders, and I'm going to say open table definition, and this will open up the definition of the order table. Now you'll notice we have a customer ID here, but I don't want to store the customer ID here anymore. I want to relate directly to the account because I need to know the account of the customer. And then the account will always tell us the customer. So what we need to do is delete the customer, and it warns us that if we delete this field, it will also be deleting the relationship to customer. And so we want to say yes, that's okay. Then I'm going to add the new account ID, foreign key. Okay. We're going to move it up here. Then I'm going to right click, and we're going to create a foreign key relationship here. Click add. And the primary key is account. And this foreign key is the account ID and orders. Okay? All right, so now I've set up a relationship that would work just fine if our data, if there was no data inside the database when I press save, it would work. However, we've been using this application and we have data in it. And first off, I'm going to tell you right now, never, ever, ever run scripts against a production database. This is our development database, and we happen to have some test data in here. So in that case, it's still not going to work because we have said that this is a required field. And when we save this, it's not going to have any data to put into the current rows that are already inside of our account, our orders table. So what we must do is modify the change script before we run it. So I'm going to have to press generate change script now. And this will do the same thing. It'll ask us if we want to save this changes to a text file. Yes. And this is exactly where we want it. We want it in our change script. So we're going to press save. Okay, so now you'll see the order SQL here. We can open that up. And I'm going to expand that a little bit here. Close that so we can see this better. And you'll notice that it generated a change script for us. And we can modify this now with the information we're going to need to put data into the the account ID field. Okay. So we're currently working against our development database, as I mentioned, but after we have these scripts all tested and completely tested, we can be ready to take this database project and execute that against our production machine. So let's first make sure we have the right data in here. Before we can run this change script, like I mentioned, we're going to have to get some data inside of our account table. So I'm just going to first say if we have customers, then what I need to do is I need to insert into our account table there we go. I need to insert the customer ID. Okay, so we can create a relationship in our data. Okay, and that's going to come from customer. So for every customer that I have inside of my database, I want to create an account record. Okay, so where it's not going to have a account number, but it will at least have the account, one account for every customer, and that way I can get my orders related properly. So now we can just modify this here. Let's just make this easier to read really quick. So you'll notice that right now all it's doing is it's taking from the temp table we're creating first with the structure that we want that has the account ID here, and we're inserting all of the rows from the order table. But this isn't going to work as is the way it's generated because our account ID is also a required field. Okay, so what we're going to do is just add an account ID by getting at the account. We're going to relate that. So first I'm going to prefix all of these current fields with orders because these are currently coming from the orders table. But the next field is going to come from account. Okay. So account ID. So now we need to just join this new account ID. So what I'm going to do is just inner join account on account.customer ID. These are the ones we added in the previous statement on the orders.customer ID. Okay, because orders at this point is our current orders. Sorry, that's an ID there. Okay, so the current order table still has the customer ID, and now I want to get at the account ID for this new table. And you'll see that this temp table is then renamed to the order table. And it'll give us a warning when we do this rename. But this is how we're going to get our data in the right format. Okay, so now we can press save, and then I can right click on this and select run. And you'll notice down here, our database, it looks like it inserted 11 rows here. That was our account table. Okay, so it looks like it ran great. So just to check, I'm going to go back to the Server Explorer, and we can now refresh all this data. You'll see there's account ID now. And we can go ahead and right click and show table data. And you'll see that we've got the account IDs in here instead of the customer IDs. And in our account table, we show table data. We can see that we have one account created for every customer. All right, great. Okay, so now that we have our data squared away, we're going to need to modify the data sets that refer to our orders. Okay, so here's we got our orders data set open, and there's a couple of different ways we can go about this. One way is we could add the account table directly into this data set and create 3 tables in our data set. Then we would have to go and redesign the form. Okay. The other option is we can just go ahead and add the customer ID into this orders table, data table, from the account table in the database. And then that way we don't have to modify our form. We just end up modifying it at the data set level here. So because remember that your data sets do not have to match one-to-one to your database. It's more like you can look at it as a view of your data. So I'm going to prefer that approach because I don't want to have to break all of our forms right now. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to right click on the orders and we're going to click configure. And this will open up our table adapter configuration wizard. And you'll notice it still has the old statement here. So what I'm going to do is open up the query builder, and you can see now we've got the account ID available. So I'm going to go ahead and add that into the table because adding columns in your data set doesn't affect the form at all. But we're going to need to figure out where we're going to get this new customer ID. Okay, so we want to get that from the account table. So I'm going to right click on this design surface and say add table, and I'm going to add in the account. Okay, so this is where we're going to get the customer ID. Okay, so now it's changed our select statement to go ahead and join in the account. Okay, so we're going to click OK. Now when we do that, it's going to regenerate our fill and get data methods, but it's not going to be able to generate the update, insert, and delete statements anymore because now we're coming from 2 tables. So all we'll have to do is just design those ourselves. So what we do is we can go into the property sheet here, and I'm going to raise this up just a little bit so we can see it better. And you'll notice that we've got delete command, insert command, and update command here. So I'm going to go ahead and select new update command. Then we can expand this, and we can select our text. So now the text for the update command is going to be coming from orders. Okay, so we're going to update these fields. Okay, and what we're going to do is update them with parameters that are named the same as the fields. Okay, so you'll see once I do that, that the designer will be able to fill in the parameters automatically. Okay, and last is ship date. So we just need a where clause here. Okay, so where the order ID is equal to order ID. Okay, so click OK. Okay, so the next statement we need to create is our delete command, and select new command text. We go ahead and we can design this. So we have orders. So delete from orders where order ID equals at order ID. Okay, so you notice, see, it's filling in the parameters for us. Okay, and then finally the insert command. Select new, and we'll go into this command text. We'll add orders to here, and insert command, because our order ID is a identity field, we're just going to have to insert account ID and the order date and ship date. So the values our account ID, order date, and ship date. Okay. Okay, so now we've got our insert, update, and delete commands and our select command specified. So now all we did effectively to the form is add an account ID. So I'm going to go ahead and press save now, and that'll regenerate our data set. Okay, so now we can hit F5, and this will pull up the form that is using this data set, and you can see that it will run unchanged. You have the customer ID here. Okay, so let's just drag over the account ID so we can get this to save. This form needs to have that to save. So I'm going to open up Form 8, and then I'm going to show my data sources window, and you'll see here's the new account ID, and I'm just going to drag this over onto the form. And so let's run this one more time. And so now when we add a new record, we can specify the account and the customer, and we can add our products, and we can press save, and our update insert statements worked. Okay, so that's how we can manage changes in our database schema. As requirements change, which they always do, and our database schema changes, we want to make sure that we minimize the impact to our application. And we can do that by using data sets as more views into our database. So I'd like to thank you for your time. If you'd like to check out the Visual Basic Developer Center, we'll be posting updates to these videos there. Please also check out the Visual Basic team blog and my blog for more information. Thanks again.